Next, from the Union League Club of Chicago, Erica Borggren, the director of the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs, launches a new initiative to coordinate the efforts of nonprofits that provide services to veterans. This runs about 30 minutes.
Thank you, General Saletti, for providing that history and the background for us. And let me echo your thanks as well to the folks who have gotten the mission from the beginning in the McCormick Foundation, the Union League Club, whose support goes well beyond the sponsorship of the actual event today, but to helping to shape it. I'd say the same of the McCormick Foundation, of the Tawani Foundation, the Pritzker Military Library, really these centers of gravity in the veteran world here in Illinois that we're privileged to have here in Illinois, who have all understood this vision that we're beginning to share with you a bit here this morning, and that many of you have been involved in helping to shape. And so we are really very grateful for that partnership. You heard a bit from General Saletti about the institutional background for why are we here today with Illinois joining forces. I'd like to share a bit from the Department of Veterans Affairs side and my own personal experience, how it is that we went from, maybe we could have a little more coherence in this space to a full year-long endeavor where we get to welcome all of you who have helped us to shape it. I will say I've been in my position now for about 15 months, and for the first 1 or 2 months that I was in the position, as many of you and your compatriots across the state who do such great work for service members and veterans would come to me and request meetings and brief me on what your organizations do, I was so very encouraged to hear of all the great work underway, that this is a great organization, great work, and I got this experience over and over again as I got to sit down with the many organizations represented here, or those that are watching on the live streaming, and really all across the state. But by month 2, or possibly the end of month 2, I was very overwhelmed by it. And instead of being, wow, another great organization, the thought was, wow, another great organization. And they were. These are all great organizations. But as I shared this feeling of being overwhelmed with some among you, I found that this sense of being overwhelmed by all that is out there is one that's shared, I think, by all of us in this room. This sense that the sea of goodwill, this so-called sea of goodwill, really is a bit overwhelming, and there really actually is the potential to drown in it if we can't add a little bit of coherence to it. And so that was the seed corn of the idea for how can we possibly use the convening power of the state, and that's really what we bring to it from the state perspective, the convening power, this, and the support moving forward. How can we use that convening power to add value to the awesome work that is underway? And that's really the driving force behind Illinois joining forces. So my mission, you described your mission as providing the background, my mission is to bore you with the nuts and the bolts. But I think it's something we all need to hear this morning so that you can understand fully where we're going, how you've shaped it, and hopefully get as excited about it as we are here today and moving forward, because it's not just an event, it's a whole movement and an ongoing body of work that we envision Illinois joining forces will be, and we're excited to have you on board with it. So the vision of Illinois joining forces is, as you might expect from what you've heard already this morning. What we'd like to do is essentially sort our business. Here's this whole community of service providers with great hearts and great services. How can we sort our business better? So to increase the awareness amongst all of us of what's happening, and to whom can I refer a veteran when I have somebody in my office or a service member in my office that needs assistance I can't provide? Who's a trusted entity out there? Where's a local entity to this service member I'm assisting? So better awareness amongst us of what's happening, but also increased active collaboration so that you can actually sit down across the table or around the table from folks in this space and find the synergies, because as you all know, every time you have a conversation with another veteran organization, you find something you could do better together. So let's sort our business, add better awareness, and add better active collaboration in this community. And as a result of sorting our own business, we increase the navigability for ourselves, and we now know who we can refer veterans to and who we can work with in this space. And if we now understand it better, then it's going to be a whole lot more navigable to the veterans and the service members that we all support day in and day out. Because if we're overwhelmed by it, then how much more so is a struggling service member or veteran not, or how much more so is that individual that we're trying to help overwhelmed by it. So let's increase the navigability of it, and that's a big piece of Illinois joining forces. And then the final piece, if we've sorted our business and now it's much more navigable and we understand it, we sure should use the fact that we're all sitting here around the table and all the expertise that's represented in the room to spread that expertise outward. So there are all these organizations across the state as you know, that are just service providers, not necessarily veteran and military specific, that do touch veterans and service members every day in their offices and in the course of their business, and who either don't know that they're servicing these folks or don't know what to do with the fact that it's a veteran or somebody who is exhibiting post-traumatic stress, whatever it might be. And so I think there's a great educational role to be played through Illinois Joining Forces. The idea is that we use the convening power of the state to allow the work that's happening already to rest on a foundation of collaboration and to give you tools to do that, to accomplish the things in the bullets that you see behind me. There are two ways, basically, that we see Illinois Joining Forces doing this. One is through the in-person working groups of Illinois Joining Forces, and hopefully most of you are familiar with these because you've actually self-selected into a working group that you'll participate in this afternoon. But these are working groups centered on functional areas of need for the communities that we serve. And the point of the working groups is to convene the experts who do it day to day and find the synergies, get to know each other, and where we can work better together. That's the working group, the in-person piece. But there's also a really powerful tool we intend to provide through Illinois Joining Forces that's online. It's the online web platform at illinoisjoiningforces.org. And again, the primary goal is the internal piece. So this is actually, it's not a resource directory akin to the National Resource Directory or Warrior Gateway. It's actually much more robust than that. It's member organizations, all of you, updating your member profiles regularly so that this is an actively updated, active collaboration tool on the web platform. And not only can you update your services and your hours, and do you accept TRICARE, and do you service particular eras of veterans, you can also input your events so that we can stop scheduling events on the same day and across the street from each other. All kinds of deconfliction tools that this website will provide for us as a community, an internal resource for members of Illinois Joining Forces. But again, it would be crazy to pull all that information together and not put a public face on it that allows for anybody, any veteran, any person who knows a veteran and is wanting to help, to then search that database. And so there is a public navigation tool for anybody to be able to refer a veteran inward. And actually, one of the more powerful pieces, to go back a moment on the internal side, is the ability, as you'll see later this morning, to refer a veteran by name inside the system, search for the organization that provides what the veteran in your office needs that you can't provide, and actually provide a referral by name, have that referral accepted and acknowledged, you know the handshake has happened, and then have the system track these referrals. Where is the network activity and where is the collaboration happening? So it's a really powerful collaboration tool that we think will add great value to the great work that's already underway. In all of this, I think hopefully you'll pick up this theme today. The idea is the focus is on acting over talking, and it's on collaborating over staking or claiming. I'm hoping that it's a shared mentality in the room, that we all have enough of these quarterly meetings and different boards that we sit on, all of which do great work, but sometimes which can become talking forums. And that what we'd like to see Illinois Joining Forces be instead is an active body of collaboration in which it just doesn't matter whose name or whose logo is on what we're doing, although you're welcome to have your logos on the various things that we're doing as well. The focus is also on this being a true statewide effort, so although we're sitting in the city of Chicago, we actually, more than a quarter of our participants today are from outside of Chicago and from as far away as Marion. Thank you to the VA there for sending representatives. And actually you'll notice, I'm not sure if you did, but I'll point it out now, that in the logo it's the city of Chicago skyline and then fields of grain. It is truly an across the state effort where we're hoping to bring in organizations large and small, public and private, and again, increase awareness and navigability. I'd like to talk for a moment about membership, because really the only way that this collaboration is going to happen is if organizations like yours and leaders like you commit to that kind of collaboration. That commitment comes in the form of membership. So we are asking organizations to sign on formally as members of Illinois Joining Forces, and that comes in the form of a simple memorandum of understanding, and I'll explain it in a moment what that looks like. But we're really looking to formalize the movement and formalize the commitment that we think through the conversations we've had with all of you throughout the last year is very much a shared one, and that's what the MOUs, and actually I think you each have one in your member packet that's tailored to the type of organization that you are, so you could take a look at that moving forward. There are some basic member expectations, as I mentioned, the commitments you make when you say I'd like to be a member as an organization of Illinois Joining Forces. The first is that you pledge to some very basic principles, shared member principles. These are principles none of us here would disagree with, like the veteran or the service member comes first, or like we will collaborate when possible. Very basic principles that I'm sure nobody here would have trouble with. You also commit to updating your member profile, or at least confirming it monthly, so that this doesn't become a static tool online, so that your events are in there if you change your hours at a given location or who you service at a given location, that's all reflected and it's live update essentially through this commitment to update monthly. An organization, by signing on for membership, also commits to participating to the extent possible in the work of the working groups, which will meet, and I know you all dread this phrase, they will meet quarterly, but they will be meeting quarterly, sometimes via long distance, so we don't have to create the statewide travel, and on very particular projects and topics, so that, again, the focus is on action and not talking. And lastly, in membership, organizations commit to using, to the extent that they can, using the web platform to capture the referrals, either ones that you are already doing because you have, all of you have existing collaborations and networks. And we're not looking to stamp those out at all. We're looking actually to raise the visibility of them and increase the efficacy of them. But to the extent that you can, that you would actually use the website to log the referrals that you were doing anyway, and then to find new referrals because you now have visibility of all the new organizations out there that are participating. We think that there are a number of reasons that organizations would want to sign on, that there's actually great benefit to each of you. I think you would actually, you all see this intuitively or you wouldn't be in the room. But that basically by participating in Illinois Joining Forces, you get access to all of this, to each other, and to the expertise represented in this group of advocates and supporters. You also get the tools that come with Illinois Joining Forces from the website and the internal navigation ability, which is much more robust than the external. The use of the logo, so you can proudly claim yourself to be an Illinois Joining Forces member on your internal documents and on the website. You also would have the opportunity as an Illinois Joining Forces member to, if desired, shape the policy process. Because one of the things that we all have these ideas that come up in the middle of these quarterly meetings, and how does that actually come to fruition somewhere? Well, what we've done with Illinois Joining Forces is say that through the working groups, and through the working groups providing upward to the executive committee policy recommendations that emerge from your meetings, those recommendations will be forwarded to the Discharge Service Member Task Force. That's a body, actually a legislatively mandated body, that produces an annual report of policy recommendations to the Illinois legislature, in which we actually send straight to the Secretary of the VA back in DC as well. And so it's an opportunity to have what's being said at the tables from the experts actually hopefully feed itself into the policy process. So these are what we think are the many great benefits of membership, all for the very simple commitment of committing to collaborate together. So we think it's really a fantastic tool for all of you. There are, just to get even more into the nuts and bolts, several types of membership. And so you actually each have a bit different version of this membership MOU inside your packets. There's full membership and then there's affiliate membership. So the intent, as I mentioned, of Illinois Joining Forces is to sort our business. So who we're looking to entice first to join Illinois Joining Forces is public and nonprofit entities that either are a veteran or military organization or that have a military or veteran specific program. So it's the community of active existing providers that have the veteran and military expertise. Any entity that falls into the category I just mentioned is eligible for full membership. The MOUs inside that just vary a little bit based on, if you're a federal public entity, we probably don't want to make you accept referrals because now we're an alternate patient advocate line for the VA center, and that's not the intent of it. So there are just some nuances inside the membership MOUs, but essentially full membership is all that I've already described. But we know there are also organizations out there that know they're touching veterans and that want to be part of this conversation. And so that's where the impetus for affiliate membership arrived from. So affiliate membership is the same types of entities, public and nonprofit. It would probably end up being primarily nonprofit, who want to be part of the conversation, who will commit to member principles and to participating in working groups, but there's really not as much a point for them to do. They have less referral capability inside the website. These are all nuances that I'm not sure we need to get too much into detail on. Suffice it to say, every kind of member commits to the vision, to the principles that I've laid out already, and to using the website to allow all of this to happen, and the working groups as well. So now that I've gone into such detail on all the membership, let me tell you how you do it. One, there is that membership MOU in your folder. So if you're just sold out right away, that's great, and you have the authority. Go ahead and sign that memorandum of understanding and hand it to any one of us here today. But we acknowledge that most of your organizations have some kind of approval channel that will need to go through. And so take the time that you need to do that. Here's what we've devised in the meantime so that we can keep the momentum of today moving forward. It's called provisional membership. And actually, any of you who has already filled out the online surveys in the months leading up to today, and nearly 100 organizations did, you automatically, unless you chose to opt out last week, have provisional membership in the sense that your organization's information is already on the website and preloaded when it goes live. And that's what provisional membership is. It's the ability to use the web platform and to participate in the working groups for the next 90 days, which is the intent of which is to buy your organization the time to make the decisions necessary on formal membership, on the MOUs that are in your packet. So provisional memberships will expire on February 1st, and we hope that that 90-day window allows you the time to participate actively, see the great worth of it, and get it through your approval channels. That provisional membership, as I said, is already the case for folks who did the survey, and for those that would like to sign up for provisional membership, it's simply a matter of going on the website and creating a member login. So that's the route to membership, essentially. So I'd like to discuss a few more nuts and bolts, the first of which is the working groups themselves, and you'll participate in these this afternoon, and so see a bit of these in person. The list that's hopefully behind me now, or will be shortly, is the list of the member working groups. There are 10 of them. These are familiar to you. And we're asking that each organization self-select into them, even organizations that were not able to participate today or are participating via watching the live web streaming. The point of the working groups, as I mentioned before, is to pull the experts around the table and create the in-person collaboration and the cross-fertilization of ideas that allows for, and to then identify the gaps that are out there and work together to meet them. So the working groups themselves, we hope, are going to define the work of the working groups, but we acknowledge that sometimes it helps to have some guidance. And so what we have done for this first year is said, here are 3 things that we would really like each working group to do. It's general guidance, and we're hoping that the experts at the table inside each working group will take that general guidance and say, well, how does this fit the work that we're doing inside the area that we work on? So that's essentially the list you're seeing in front of you. We're asking that each working group create some kind of best practices or basically a resource guide or best practice, a 1- or 2-page document that is helpful to the public or to whatever audience you think is necessary on a topic that fits what you all do. Here you are, all the experts who use the best practices out there. What are they, and how do we make those transparent to the community outside? The second is to identify and implement some kind of educational project. I mentioned this role already. How do we use the expertise at the table and spread it to the community of other providers out there, whether it's behavioral health care practitioners or schools, K-12 schools, you name it, where they're touching the community that we are here to support. How can we spread our expertise? So come up with a project on your topic that does that. And then the last is and it's the most nebulous, is to find the gap that's out there. Where is there something that's not happening that because you're all at the table you could actually do together, or at least do better together? So what we're asking today actually is for each working group to come up with to identify these 3 projects, not to do them clearly, but to discuss what is underway already and to say, okay, where does it make most sense as a group for us to focus our efforts over the next year? A couple of quick clarifiers. We're not looking to duplicate, as hopefully you will pick up as a theme throughout the day. The point is not to just create more noise. And so if as a group, as you have the conversations today and moving forward, it comes out that there's a really great project underway on the part of a particular member or a subgroup of members at that table, and the group as a whole wants to put the power of the group's effort behind it, that's fantastic. There's no need to create something new. On the other hand, if you do think that there's a need to create something new, then great, let's create a new project, but let's not duplicate for the sake of duplicating. And then the last piece that I feel compelled to clarify, because we get the question all the time, is what does the funding for all this look like? And despite the wonderful appearances that the Union League Club provides to us today, I have to say that there is not funding forthcoming from the body at large of Illinois Joining Forces. As I've mentioned, our goal is to create the foundation and the tools via which you can do the collaboration. our thought is that you're, as the experts who do this day to day, identifying projects amid your working groups that you're either already doing and want to do better together, or that you wish you could do and want to do together. And so you either already have the funding for and are doing it and now get to bring extra manpower and networks and advertising ability to it, or you decide as a group that you want to fundraise for it, and you would be perfectly within the limits of the Illinois Joining Forces Charter and SOP to use the logo and fundraise for it. But there is not funding forthcoming from the kind of central body, if you could even say there was one, at Illinois Joining Forces. The last thing that we're actually asking the working groups today to do, besides identify these 3 projects, is to elect an administrative chair, somebody that can kind of be the person that convenes the next meeting and that can make sure the conversation moves forward and liaise back to the executive committee of Illinois Joining Forces. That kind of leads me on to the governance topic a bit. To the extent that we can, we'd like to have this be rules and structure free, and you define it and you do your work. But like I said, sometimes guidance helps. There's only one rule, really, that we have inside the charter documents deemed necessary for working groups, and that is that all decisions inside Illinois Joining Forces, whether it's the executive committee, whether it's a working group itself, that all decisions are made by majority vote, 1 vote per organization. You can have the most heated conversation in the world to get to the vote, but when the vote happens and the majority has ruled, we all agree that that's what's happened and we move forward. There are no power players in Illinois Joining Forces. It's the voice of the group together. And so it's the one rule that we're asking each working group to abide by. Beyond that, we are asking each working group from a structural perspective to identify that administrative chairperson, just so we can maintain connectivity and visibility of what's happening inside each working group. The governance piece back 1 level further happens via the executive committee, which you've heard me refer to offhand here a couple of times. That's a 15-member body, basically, that's all 10 working group administrative chairs. You elect those folks from among you. And then a representative each from General Saletti's agency, my agency, the Department of Veterans Affairs nationally, the IAC-VAC, which is the Association of County Veterans Assistance Commissions, and then the City of Chicago. So you'll see the intent there, right? We assume that you're electing the nonprofit leaders amongst you, although you'd be welcome to nominate and elect chairs that are public as well. And then we're hitting public, federal, all the way down to local, and ensuring that representation is on the executive committee. The goal of the executive committee is really to serve as a check and balance more than anything else. It's a big tent organization, very few barriers to entry except for these commitment to the principles. But we have to have a way, as you all have recognized and as you brought to our attention, to identify if there's a bad apple amongst us who really is out there exploiting veterans. And so the executive committee has the authority to, when an issue like that is raised to their attention, to actually revoke membership or to say you no longer have the ability to use the Illinois Joining Forces logo. This was our attempt to find the balance between welcoming everybody to the table and making sure that we're not letting abusers of the system be part of it. The working group also, moving forward, we've defined the guidance for the working groups this year, but the executive committee will do that moving forward. So maybe next year they'd say, okay, identify this kind of project. We've just set the table, as it were, for you already this year. And then finally, the executive committee will actually compile, as I've mentioned before, the policy recommendations produced by each working group and make sure that those get to the Discharged Service Member Task Force to consider including them in the annual report to legislators. I told you it was nuts and bolts. This is my last slide. It's on the role of the state, because we get it a lot. So what exactly is this body? Is this a state entity? Is it private? What is it? Well, to this point, it has been very state heavy, because as I've mentioned, that we've had to use the convening power of the state to make this happen and to create the tools that we hope to offer to you through Illinois Joining Forces. But moving forward, we envision the role of the state being as small as it possibly can be. It truly is a public-private partnership. I think you see that in the governance structure. While we sponsor the tools that we're offering you today and the actual body of Illinois Joining Forces, it's actually an entity created between our 2 organizations so that we could stand it up. We now have this foundation for you to do the collaboration upon and intend to step back to the extent that we can. but we realize it creates the need for some administrative support. And moving forward, that's the role of the state. So we have each of our agencies committed to providing the manpower to make sure that we can approve member logon accounts, to make sure that if you want to meet in person as a working group, we can help you find that space to do that, to offer the conference lines of our agencies. So if you want to bring together people across the state, you can use our conference call lines. The administrative support that is just necessary to make things like this happen. Again, you define the work, and we help support it only through manpower, really, moving forward. You determine what that work looks like, as you have from here and as many of the collaborative groups out there are already determining. So in that sense, Illinois Joining Forces is kind of what you make of it. I mean, we've put it all out there, and we are really very excited to see what you do with it. And that starts, I think, with the conversations here this afternoon, but it very much doesn't end there. And I think that's what's so exciting about this event, is that it's not an event. It's actually, to use a military term, we're at the line of departure right now and moving forward. And so it's really very exciting to have all of you here to be a part of that, and I appreciate your making the time in what is a very busy week for all of us to make it happen. Thanks very much. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to General Saletti.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.